Hi, it's Deborah Atkinson with Flipping 50 TV and the host of the Flipping 50 podcast. I'm here to talk to you about bones and osteoporosis prevention and or treatment if you've already been diagnosed. And one topic that comes up is also osteopenia, that place between where you have good strong bones and where you've been diagnosed with osteoporosis is what tends to be osteopenia. So I encourage you, if you've gotten the word that you are in a place of osteopenia that you know is a great warning signal and you're not going the right direction. You may not quote unquote have osteoporosis, but you need to begin treating yourself as if you do. I'm going to link below to our bone health mini course, which would be a great thing for you to get started. But right now, I'm going to give you some specific tips so that you can begin exercising appropriately and hopefully alleviate some worries or concerns that you may have. Number one, there's a lot of confusion about what type of strength training is best for osteoporosis. So it depends a little bit on who you are because every situation is different. If you are at very high risk, your bones are extremely fragile, then you want to make sure that you're checking with your physician first and you're working ideally with a physiotherapist who can really help you understand and identify the best exercises and the best technique and form. So you're going to want to have good form, and it may be better for you to have eyeballs, if not hands, spotting you as you get started so that you know exactly what that is. Now, if you've been apparently healthy, you're feeling good, and yet suddenly you discovered through a bone density scan or a DEXA scan that you've got osteoporosis, and it's a little crushing to your ego to know that, you don't have to stop the activities that you're doing now. In fact, the best thing for you to do would probably be to continue those. Be a little cautious doing things that come with extra risk. Meaning, if once or twice a year you go downhill skiing, you might want to think twice about that. But if you, for instance, live in the mountains of Colorado and you ski on a regular basis and you're used to it, your balance is good, both in dynamic and static balance, and you're used to doing it and you love it, you probably are going to be better off, healthy, mentally and physically, if you continue doing that. It's safer for you when you're doing it on a regular basis. If it's one of those occasional things and you're not necessarily really solid and confident, that's when you would think twice about doing it. You wouldn't necessarily take up step aerobics where you've got an additional prop that you might trip or stumble on if you have osteoporosis. But if you've been doing step, you can continue it, and I hope that makes sense. So you can take all of the rest of your activities and look at them the very same way. Now, next up is strength training. If you're not doing it, start. That is the number one thing that can help you reduce the loss of bone mineral density is strength training. So what you want to do is start very gradually with one set with a slightly lighter weight that you can lift potentially 20 times, plus or minus. So that might be 17 or 18, or might be up to 23, because you'll have to play a little bit to figure out. And that means to fatigue. That's not just choosing the arbitrary number and then stopping. It means to muscular fatigue. Do that one set at that weight load for a couple of weeks before you increase to a next weight load. Still fatiguing, but now at somewhere between 15 and 20 repetitions. So it's getting a little heavier. And then the following 2 weeks, you would increase to 2 sets doing that, reaching fatigue between 15 and 20 repetitions. The following 2 weeks, you would increase to 3 sets, fatiguing between 15 and 20 repetitions. The following 2 weeks, you would increase the weight so you're fatiguing between 10 and 12 repetitions for 3 sets. Ultimately, if you're safe doing it, you're not experiencing any aches or pains in your joints or your ligaments, you would try and increase your weight to something you could reach fatigue at in 10 repetitions or fewer. So if you're exercising at home, that can be a little harder to do safely. If you're on machine weights at a fitness center or a rec center, it can be a little bit safer to do that load of a weight, particularly on a leg press, a chest press, in a seated row. So we're going to work the major muscles in the chest and in the back, working the spine to load them, and in a leg press, working the muscles around the hip joints. And the osteozones are the hip, the spine, and the wrist. So we want to pay specific attention to those. That means those are the joints most likely to fracture. Either vertebral fractures can happen from bending over and lifting, even from sneezing or coughing abruptly. Hip fractures can happen if you fall on the ice, for instance, or you catch your toe on a rug and you go down. And wrist fractures happen often in both cases, potentially because we reach out to brace falls and or we're lifting heavily with something but with poor form. So you want to watch this kind of a movement. You want to make sure your wrist stays nice and straight as you're lifting your weights. That's a lot of information in a short amount of time. If that was helpful, go ahead and add a comment below and let me know what it was and what your next questions are. I'm going to put a link in the description about the Bone Health mini course that I offer, and I highly encourage you to get in. There's more tips and there's actually exercise demonstrations that you can look at to see what the most important exercises are for you. And I'll see you on the flip side.